All right, so this is a simple exercise we're going to do to make sure that our dog is not alerting on U.S. currency. And it's not that hard, very simple to do, but you want to make sure that in the training records, you see that they do this on occasion. They could do it maybe once every 3 months, every 6 months, but it should be done on a fairly regular basis because narcotics dogs in real searches are coming across U.S. currency on a fairly common situation there on the streets. But this is a little bucket contraption that we built for a study we did with UC Davis some years ago, but it ensures that the dog is actually sniffing each one of these components and thereby telling us whether the dog is distracted by what's inside. If you set up a real training scenario or a training scenario that's to replicate real life, in other words, putting stuff in a vehicle or putting stuff inside of a building, we can't always guarantee the dog is actually smelling the distraction inside of that building because there's so many other things going on. So let's say we put tennis balls inside of an apartment and we put the tennis balls underneath the bed. Now, as we're doing the search and we want to make sure that our dog is ignoring the tennis balls, it's very difficult to know exactly what the dog is sniffing. So if we go near that bed, the dog could actually be sniffing in between the mattresses and the box springs. It could be smelling the headboard or the footboard. And as the dog is coming by, we're not necessarily sure 100% if the dog is actually smelling anything related to the tennis balls that are underneath the bed. Now, we can guess that it's probably coming pretty close, but we're really not sure. So to be sure that the dog is ignoring the substance inside these buckets, it's much better to make sure and put them in a place where we're almost positive that, and this is dog food, that the dog, by sniffing this bucket, we're almost guaranteeing that the dog is smelling that content inside. And if he leaves it, he thereby is ignoring it and going on to the thing we want him to find. So in the case of U.S. currency, what I want to show you here is we got shredded U.S. currency that's not been circulated, and so we want to make sure and use that. And it's pretty easy to get, surprisingly enough, and we're going to put that in one of the buckets to make sure that the dog is going to sniff this particular bucket with the U.S. currency in it. And this is, again, is uncirculated. So that's just because U.S. currency has a unique odor because it's made differently than any other paper, right? Because we want it to be unique so we can make sure it's not counterfeit. The other thing you want to do, and this is something not a lot of people do, is we want to put actual currency that's been in circulation, and this is out of my pocket, and no, I haven't been dealing drugs lately or doing anything like that, but we want to make sure the dog is going to ignore actual U.S. currency that's been in circulation, and we're going to put that inside of a bucket. Put it right there. We're missing a lid on one of the other buckets here. Let me put the lid over here. And this is cotton balls. The reason we use cotton balls is because we often will do what's called cooking cotton balls with the odor that we're trying to teach the dog to find. And it makes it a lot easier to take cotton balls of, say, that has been contaminated with C4. It's a lot safer to take the cotton ball and hide that somewhere just in case it gets lost or gets forgotten or the car drives away. He doesn't drive away with some C4 on his vehicle. Very important. And then lastly, we're going to use, this is marijuana. That is actually I purchased in Colorado, and we put that in a bucket, and we're going to place that back over here on this end down here with a lid on it to make sure that it also is in the mix, because we want to see the dog ignore the shredded U.S. currency. We want to see the dog ignore the currency that's been in circulation, and then we want the dog to show that it alerts on narcotics, thereby showing the dog ignores U.S. currency and only alerts on narcotics. So we're going to bring our dog in here. His name is Maverick. He's going to do a search of these buckets, and we're going to see if he ignores the U.S. currency. If he does, then we can certify the dog as not a U.S. currency detection dog. It actually is a narcotics detection dog. All right, so I'm going to go get him and the handler, and we're going to conduct an exercise real quick, and we're going to see what happens in that particular search. So this is Maverick and his handler Derek, who's actually the son of a sergeant at LA County Sheriff's, just so you know. We can trust him. Oh, lieutenant now. I didn't know he got, oh, he's a lieutenant. Yeah. I should have known. And so we're going to conduct the search. And again, remember that this is so important, that a narcotics dog isn't supposed to be trained to find U.S. currency, because U.S. currency is legal. The dog should only find illegal substance, marijuana, methamphetamine, cocaine, and heroin. Some states marijuana is not included in that mix. But again, we want the dog to search these, make sure the dog sniffs each one of the buckets. And we want to make sure and ensure that he's going to ignore the shredded U.S. currency, the in circulation U.S. currency, and then find the narcotics. All right, let's go, Mav. Continue the search. Good. Good. And you saw when he got to the narcotics, he kind of hesitated.
Yeah.
Nice. Good. Yeah. Very good. Nice. We're gonna take that. We wanted the dog to ignore these things over here. He came over here to the narcotics and kind of stopped.
Yeah.
And looked at you, and now this is a training issue.
Yeah.
So the reason the dog does that is because we have so many distractors. His brain is kind of going, well, I smell food, I smell Andy because the US currency out of my pocket is there. This works on the dog's brain. He gets to the narcotics and he goes, okay, there's the narcotics, and he gets a little frozen for a moment, but we just continue to search. We don't talk the dog into the alert, which was a great thing that this handler did, that I want to give you a little pat on the back, that you didn't stand there and talk the dog into the alert, right? Even though we knew it was there, the dog gave you a little look and you go, okay, dog, it's not there. And we continued our search, came back, and now the dog told you that there's something there. That was perfectly handled. So I'm going to keep that in. I'm not even going to edit that out.
Cool.
That's really good. All right, lots of praise. Yeah, boy. No, boy. Nice. Nice. All right. Well, next thing I want to do is I want to show you something that has come up recently in regard to vehicle searches when U.S. currency is found inside of that vehicle. Right, so here we have a box of U.S. currency. There's a whole box of U.S. currency. We're going to put it inside this vehicle. And again, it's shredded U.S. currency. And I'm going to put it here with the lid open, and we're going to shut this door, and we're going to keep it there for about an hour. All right, so I wanted to make sure that it's in there for a long enough time so that I'm sure the U.S. currency odor is coming out somewhere on this vehicle. All right, so again, the dog is not to be alerting on U.S. currency unless it is full of narcotics odor, unless it's been in a storage locker right next to pounds of cocaine. The U.S. currency will not get enough contamination to lead the dog to believe that it actually is narcotics if it's not sitting with a large quantity of narcotics and actually just having the currency soak up that odor between all the stacks of money and the pores of the money itself. So we're going to search this vehicle and make sure the dog just completely searches this vehicle and does not alert on this car, because it's only U.S. currency that's not been circulated. But again, we want to be sure that the dog ignores the vehicle just based on there being U.S. currency inside it. All right. Hope I didn't beat that dead horse too long, but just want to make sure that that's very, very clear, because this can be confusing to some people, including judges and juries and some attorneys. All right. So here we go. Let me cut off the video, and then we'll come back in about a little bit and then do the search. All right, so we have Goldie and we have Derek, who's going to do a search on this vehicle. And again, there's just U.S. currency inside there. There's no narcotics. We want the dog to search the outside to show us that the dog is ignoring the currency that has been sitting inside that vehicle for some time. All right, when you're ready. This dog's fairly new in training, so we may have to give this dog a little bit more direction from time to time to stay on the vehicle. And she's going to be sniffing around. We want to make sure she's sniffing the cracks and the crevices. Good. Good. That was nice. So she's sniffing the trunk area, the cracks, the crevices. You can see she's focused. She's actually ignoring Derek for the most part and searching the vehicle, and that's exactly what you want. And again, this is a new dog. Good. Sticks her head in there. Good. Praise her up. Nice. Good. So good search. So she goes around the vehicle. So now I want to show you something interesting. Now we know that that currency in there has not been sitting with narcotics. We know that it's untainted. We know that on the outside of the vehicle, because this is my secretary's vehicle, that she doesn't smoke pot or do drugs. At least I'm pretty sure she doesn't. And so there should not be anything. And the dog did not show us anything. And what I want to show you is something very interesting that you need to consider when looking at these cases. And this happened in the last case I just got done working on, that it came up, and I really thought through this, that this is really, really an important point. So let me get something real quick. I'll get some narcotics and show you what can happen. All right. All right, I got my marijuana. And let's say I'm the friend of a guy driving that vehicle right there. I've been at my house waiting for him to arrive. And while I'm waiting, I decide to go ahead and roll a marijuana cigarette using this marijuana and touching it with my hands, just like I'm doing here, to make sure that there's, I want to make sure that I get plenty on there and get it squished down and get it in there so that it makes a nice tight doobie. Yeah, that's right, I said doobie. And so I have a lot of marijuana odor on my hand, not because I'm trying to, but because I'm making a cigarette. So I smoke the cigarette, breathing it in, making sure that I get a nice good puff off of that thing, holding it with my fingers. And then my buddy finally gets there, honks the horn, I go outside, and just as we would normally do, we come over here and grab the doorknob and open it up, right? And then we stop the door with our hands, we go inside and we pull the door shut, all right? So now, we've transferred odor from a marijuana cigarette that we smoked inside of my own house, yet I have no narcotics with me. We get stopped by the police and we're going to do a search with a narcotics dog. So let's bring Goldie around, who just ignored the vehicle. And again, remember, Goldie's one of our newer dogs. She's in training and she's getting ready to be put out there as a detection dog. So we're going to have to point out a few more areas than what we would normally do with a veteran dog, but we just want to make sure she sniffs the areas that she's supposed to be sniffing. Good. Keep her going. Excellent. Nice job on handling. Good. And a good narcotics handler would make sure the dog smells the cracks. Good. And the dog alerts. Good. Nice. So the dog is essentially alerted on the handle of that vehicle. Now, granted, again, this is actually better than most searches I see, but many narcotics dog handlers that I've seen lately get really involved in their dogs. So no doubt we are pointing out these areas, but again, I'm trying to prove a point that we had a dog alert on that handle, not because there's narcotics inside the vehicle, but because there's narcotic odor on the outside of the vehicle, because I just got done rolling a doobie and putting my hands on that handle. And that's how easily this can happen. So now, the handler says, young man, my dog's alerted on your vehicle. We need to search the inside. And as we go through the inside, the only thing we find is this box of $100,000 in U.S. currency, and they seize the money. And now we have a case, a federal case that's $127,000 versus the United States. And now we have a tough time getting this money back. But is there narcotics on this money? No, because we did a search over there that showed there was no narcotics on the money. We did a search around the vehicle before it got tainted with the narcotics, and we know for sure there's no narcotics on this money. However, it is getting seized as narcotics money because our dog alerted on the outside of the vehicle. In the case I just had, they seized only the money but not the vehicle. If we are to hold true to what the law says and what we're trying to accomplish, then we should also seize the vehicle, not just the U.S. currency. But that's a mistake I'm seeing made in many cases, right? And then the only thing they need to do in addition to searching the vehicle and getting this alert, they need to take this U.S. currency, take it to another location, put the U.S. currency in a situation like we had with the buckets, maybe in file cabinets back at the station, at City Hall, wherever there's a place where narcotics have never been. Take the U.S. currency, put it inside of a drawer, have the same narcotics dog come in and search and see if he gets alerts on the drawer where now this U.S. currency is. Again, the same thing should happen. The dog should come in first and clear the room of any narcotic odor. Then the U.S. currency gets brought in and put inside of a file cabinet, and then the search is conducted to let us know whether the money is actually tainted, or was the narcotics odor on this handle, or was it maybe somewhere else inside the vehicle and they just happen to miss it. Again, if we're seizing U.S. currency, we have to be able to prove that there's narcotics on this U.S. currency, and that it was used in the actions of purchasing and transportation of narcotics if we're going to keep it. All right, so hopefully I made my point with this video. Let's go back into the webinar and we'll talk a little bit more about some other stuff. All right.